When it comes to working with CSS, one of the most important things to understand is how the box model works. Without knowing how it works, it is something which can catch you out when sizing elements on a web page. Here I have set up a simple product div with a title and a description. Over inside the browser, it's just a surrounding div with a level 3 heading and a p element for the description text. The contents are irrelevant, but this will give us an understanding of how the box model works. To do this, let's jump in to the CSS. If we scroll up, we're going to add this inside the head section. Add the style tags. Let's begin by targeting the surrounding div. With something like a product, let's say we want full control over the exact width it displays in the browser. So we're going to set this div container to be a width of 500 pixels. So width, 500 pixels. Okay, good. And then let's say we have a 10 pixel value of padding. So padding, 10 pixels. We would also often see a border surrounding the product div too, 1 pixel wide, a solid line, and a color of light gray. And then some margin of 15 pixels to give it some space from the rest of the products. Margin 15 pixels. So now if we give this a save and then go over to the browser, so reload, we can now see this is set to 500 pixels and we see the border surrounding the product. So now if we go right click and inspect to open the DevTools inside of Chrome, click on the inspector and then hover over our product div, we can see in the details just below in the pop-up that we did expect the product div to be 500 pixels, but we now see a value of 522. And this is the behavior which can catch you out without fully understanding the CSS box model. So now if we click on this product div and then go over to the style section, we can get a better understanding of what is going on. If we scroll right to the bottom of the style section, we see right in the middle of this box, we have a visual representation of our elements. This middle box, which is the content, is taking up a width of 500 pixels, which we see here. And this is the size which we set in the CSS. So why do we see our product displaying at 522 pixels? Well, this is because both the padding and the border is also added into the size too. If we go to the next level, which is the padding, we see a value of 10 pixels has been applied to all sides of our div. And this is added on to the outside rather than taken into account with the value of 500. And this 10 pixels of padding all around then increases our 500 pixel box to now be 520. One level up again, we have our border. And the same with this is a value of 1 pixel which we set in the CSS, and this applies to all sides. 1 pixel on either side of our box then increases our total width to be the 522 pixels we've seen rendered inside the browser when we hovered over our element. But what about the value of 15 pixels we set as the margin? Well, margin creates space around the outside of an element, so this does not affect the box model, unlike padding, which creates the space within the elements. So to understand the size an element will display in the browser, we need to allow for the size of the content, plus any padding, and also any border sizes too. If we wanted our product div to be the exact 500 pixel width, which we set in the CSS, we can either deduct the extra border and padding from the 500 pixels, or alternatively, we can use the box sizing property. Back over to the CSS. Let's scroll down, and on our div, we can add box sizing. And we can set this to be a value of border box. Now, if we go back to the DevTools, reload the page, and if we go over our product div with the inspector, we can now see the div has a total value of 500 pixels. And then in our box representation, This has all been deducted to make our content now 478 pixels to allow for the extra padding and the border values. And this is how the CSS box model works. It really is just a case of understanding which CSS properties affects overall size of an element.